Hi, I'm Paul Perdue, and I am the infrastructure nerd.
And I'm Mary Jo Boyd, a legal technologist.
You know, there's always something that you want to play with in tabs, some new feature, something that you're going to try out because the attorney wants you to do it a certain way, but you really don't want to mess with your data.
That's true. You know, it would be great if you could just have a separate place that you could just go and just play around and see what happens.
Well, you know what? They do have something. They have sample data that comes with your copy of tabs.
Oh, yeah. Can you show us how that works?
I sure can. So, you want to use the sample data. The first thing is, where is it? Well, the simplest way to get to it is to go to your Start menu and type sample. Now, in some of the systems, you have to actually be in the box to start typing, but I think in all the Windows versions that are currently out there and being supported, you can just start typing sample. And what you're going to find is Tabs3 with sample data, PracticeMaster with sample data. We have a bunch of extra stuff because we have extra stuff that is installed. If you, for instance, type tabs, you will see Tabs3 trial, Tabs3 with sample data, Tabs3. These are all three things that you could potentially have. Of course, this is the software. This is what you want with sample data. We'll talk about the trial in a second. And so to get into Tabs3 with sample data, you just find it usually by simply typing sample data, and that will limit your choices. And on your system, where you don't have a bunch of extra stuff like I do, you should just get the current version and all the sample data for whatever programs you have installed. So let's go into Tabs3 with sample data. And you'll notice that we go into the same software that you're used to loading, but you get this little pop-up that says, hey, you are using the sample data provided with the trial version of Tabs3 PracticeMaster. Now let's talk about the trial for a second. The trial version and the sample data both use the same data set. The trial version and the sample data have the same limitations. There are a few of them, not many, but there are a few limitations. We'll go over those in a second. And so when you go into the sample data, it tells you that you're currently using the sample data provided with the trial version. It warns you that it's going to reset your date so that, because that's where your data lives, it'll tell you what that date is. And this is kind of the date, the period that it is assumed that the sample data works with. Depending on the version of the software you have, you may find dates like 11, 17, 14. That's the one that I use all the time. I must be using an old data set of sample data. But the bottom line is, it's warning you that you're using the sample data because maybe you didn't mean to come into sample data. Maybe you want to go into the real system. And it's telling you what it's resetting the date to. That's really all you need from here. And then what you'll find is that everything is pretty much exactly the way you would expect it, except there's people you don't know, like Kelly White. Well, I know Kelly White because I do a lot of work with the sample data. But if we go into Kelly White, you'll see she's got an estate planning case, a trust type case, and a divorce or family law type case. Another particularly useful person is Michael Larson. He's got his workers' comp case. That's, if you've ever had me demo the software to you, we see Michael Larson a lot. But all of these people have different scenarios. Michael Larson's Larson versus Belcore is a task-based billing case, I believe. So if you're looking for somebody with task-based billing to play with, that's a good one. Kelly White's divorce case is not a task-based billing. It's a regular case, non-task-based. So, you know, that's a good example of one to use there. But everything that you can do in the software, you can do here. It's just not going to affect your real running copy of Tabs or PracticeMaster or AP or GL or Trust. You're in a playground. You're in a sandbox where you can pretty much do what you need to do to play with things, to figure out if this is going to do what the attorney's asking you to do, or if this report's going to show this if we play with it. All the things that you may not want to do with real data. So obviously here I am, fee whip, looking at Kelly White, getting her divorce case up, and I'm seeing fee whip just like I would in the client manager. And I can edit this and I can save my changes. I can really do just about anything that I'd want to do. Okay, so let's talk about that just about thing. I'm going to take you out to the internet, and we're going to go to support.tabs3.com, and we're going to specifically look for article R10341. So I'm going to specifically look for article ID R10341. And when I get that, I am going to find that that is a little bit of information about trial software. We'll cover that in a second. The limitations that are in place for version 19 products, and you can pretty much assume these limitations are for the most part the same that you'd see in 18 and 17 and 16. And then something we'll talk about in a second, installing full software for use with trial software data. That's not relevant if you already have the software installed and have been using it for a while, but we'll talk about that in a second as well. So the more info is just, hey, you can get this trial data. You can run it for up to 99 timekeepers and 200 users. And then we get into the limitations. We can put in 30 clients and matters. We cannot run a DFIC. We cannot reindex. We cannot run set current reporting month. And we cannot run a credit card authorization. So those are the limits for tabs. And then this article will also show me what the limits are for all the accounting software and PracticeMaster. Kind of have the same client matter sort of limitations, different limits on calendar records, journal records, etc. Now, you're going to see trial software and you're going to see sample software. Remember, if we go over here and we type tabs 3, you would probably see these first three. Tabs 3 with sample data. You might see tabs 3 trial, and you would definitely, hopefully, see tabs 3 if you have a full running copy of tabs 3. If you bought the software, or if you got a trial version before you bought the software, is what I'm trying to say, then you're going to have this trial as well as the sample data. They're going to pretty much be the same. So if you have your trial that you played with before you bought the software, or you have your sample data, either of those is going to get you to the same data set. One thing that I want to talk about is something that it is spelled out on this article here, is installing the full software for use with trial software data. What that means is, if you bought the software and you got the trial version and you played with it and you put in your own clients and you put in your own timekeepers and you really got it kind of working the way you wanted it to work, and that's how you decided to buy it. This will tell you how to install your software once you do buy it so that it inherits that data that you were using before, as long as your trial was version 17 or 18 or 19. So, of course, it's going to be version 19 right now because that's been out long enough that that's the trial software that you would have. I only tell you this because some people may be watching this video thinking, well, I don't have the software yet. But I have the trial and I want to use that software later. This is where you'll find the instructions for installing tabs to use the sample data, the trial data that you were playing with before you bought the real copy of the software that you're now trying to install. This does not apply to people that already have the software. If you've got tabs and you're like, you're watching this because you're like, oh, I'd really like to know how to play with the sample data, you're not going to reinstall tabs. You've already got it installed. So that's how to get to it. That's what the difference is between the trial and the sample data. For your purposes, either one will show you the same thing. It's just a matter of whether or not you have the trial data versus the sample data. The sample data gets installed when you install your real copy of the software. It's just an extra copy of the data that can be used to play. The trial software is something that you can get before you buy the software. So it's kind of the same thing. It's just a matter of how you installed it, and you're going to have the same sample data set. So be careful of the things you cannot do. Understand how to get there. One more time, tabs 3 will take me to listing all the different iterations of tabs 3, but the better way to get there is to simply type sample and you'll see all of your programs that have sample data. Again, I have a lot of extra stuff because we have a lot of extra sample data. And then the most important thing, don't worry about messing with something if you're in this set of data. It is a totally segregated, totally separate area where nothing that you do over here will affect what you're doing over there. One last bit of advice. When you're in the sample data, because it's running from a folder that's not the same as the folder that it runs from when you run your real copy, you will not have access to help the way that you would in your real copy. So you'll get this message when you try to run help that says, hey, this was not installed locally. Well, it's not going to be installed locally because it is sample data. And what's installed locally is your real connection to your real data set. So the word advice here is use help in your real data set before you come into your sample data set to play with something. Understand what you're looking for, understand what questions you might get answered through help before you come into sample data, because you don't have access to the help infrastructure through the sample data or the trial data. So there you have it. How to use the sample data that's been there all along.
And that's just one more way that we can help you to worry less
And practice more.